What's up? This is Taylor, and we are back with Forte Catholic this week. It's a great day today. We're celebrating a great feast today. Feast of All Saints Day. We celebrated Halloween last night. Got All Souls Day tomorrow. It's just a big celebration this week. So obviously our big topic today is going to be the saints. You can't have a Catholic radio show on All Saints Day and not talk about saints. If you really want to go against the grain, I guess you could, but I'm not going to today. We are going to talk about saints today. So there's a couple of things I'm really excited about for today. Last week, I had my friend, Mr. Alex Gotay, in the studio to record an interview. He came in to do a youth event in the area called Enlisted, and he came and spoke about sainthood, and the big thing he was addressing that night was just all the craziness going on in our world today with the election and with all the race relations and with everybody being stressed out about all sorts of different things. And he talked about the things that are going to get us through that. And one of the biggest things that he says is that sainthood is a mandate. So we're going to get to that, kind of break that open in the show today. And then also in the final segment, I'm just going to share one of the big things that's been put on my heart recently about sainthood and how we're all called to be saints, but a lot of us, myself included, don't answer that call often enough. And there's one thing that stands between you and me becoming the saints that we are called to be. So that's kind of the plan for today. I want to start off today just by talking about a little bit about my Halloween experience yesterday. So I have a 3.5-year-old son and a 1.5-year-old girl. And it was so we went out for Halloween. We went trick-or-treating last night. They got all dressed up. We had a lot of fun. We had a group of people over at our house with a bunch of other little kids. So everybody was dressed up, and it was really neat because as my son's 3.5 years old, this is his first time where he really understands what trick-or-treating is. But not fully though. It was actually kind of funny. So we would, I'd walk up to the door with them, and my kids are just so trusting of people that, they'd knock on the door and then they'd start opening the door and walking in. There was at one point, a good thing it was our next door neighbors, so they know us pretty well. My son and my daughter, they walk up to the door. They don't say trick or treat. They don't know that game yet. They haven't figured that out. They walk into the house and start watching television at my neighbor's house while they're supposed to be trick-or-treating. So it was a fun day. And one of my favorite things about Halloween, and I know everybody loves it, is watching or seeing what people are going to dress up as. Scrolling through your Facebook feed, your Twitter feed, or your Instagram, or your Snapchat if you're under the age of 23, I guess. Just checking out what everybody's wearing. And it's fun to dress up as these people. And I saw one of my favorite things to see is these kids dressed up as superheroes. I love superheroes. I'm a big Marvel fan, big DC fan. I guess if you're going to like comic books, those are the two main ones that you're going to need to like. My wife and I watch the television shows. We watch the movies. My kids watch them with us. And so we like superheroes a lot in our house. So as I was, walking around trick-or-treating yesterday, seeing Iron Man and Wolverine and Spider-Man and, kind of, playing around with these kids, be like, I walked up to Wolverine, and he held out his fists with his blades coming out of his hands. He was yelling at me. So he's really getting into it. And one of the big reasons kids like these superheroes and why I like superheroes is they stand for something. Captain America is the perfect American, right? He stands for something greater, and it's something that we strive for. As a kid, I wanted to be a superhero. And if we're being quite honest today, I think I still want to be a superhero. So, but we look up to superheroes because they have great strength, they have great power, and they're role models for a lot of these kids. So as I was walking around, thinking about what I was going to say today, I recognized that we have superheroes in our church too, people that we can look up to, people who have, that are great examples for us, and those are our saints. And so last week we had it was a fun show. We had a lot of listener questions, and one of the questions was who was your favorite saint? So I answered it. Saint Christopher is one of my favorites, and St. Michael was my other favorite. So I've already kind of answered that question today. But my good old producer here, he's been tried and true through the past month or two getting the show started. He's been here, so I thought I'd give Mr. Jake Blazek a chance to answer that question. So he has a pretty interesting story about his favorite saint. So Jake, what's up, man? And who's your favorite saint?
Oh, it's been a good day. But let's see. I would say my favorite saint would have to be Saint Mary, the Mother of God, because she's absolutely awesome. But my favorite saint story is definitely technically not a saint, but her name is Blessed Imelda.
You're cheating by not picking an actual saint, but I'll let it slide this time.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But so Blessed Imelda, she lived in the 1300s, and she, at the age of about 5, she told her parents, like, for her birthday, I want to receive the Holy Eucharist. And I mean, for a 5-year-old, that's pretty intense. And
that's how I was when I was 5.
Right.
I'm just kidding. If my mom's listening right now, she's like yelling at her radio.
So at the age of 5, she wanted to receive the Holy Eucharist. And at that time in the 1300s, there was custom that they wouldn't receive until they were 14 years old. And so she desired so intently to receive the Eucharist, and she really enjoyed the nuns, the cloistered nuns, Dominican nuns there in their community. And so at the age of 9, she went and joined them, which is also a really young age to be joining Dominican sisters.
Yeah, that's the age I joined the convent as well.
Right, I believe that as well. But so she joined the Dominican sisters at the age of 9, and at the age of 11, she was sitting in Mass one day, and after Mass, she continued to sit there and pray. And as she was kneeling there, a host appeared above her head and like radiated light. And the sacristan saw that and immediately went to go get the priest. And so brings the priest in, and the priest, obviously recognizing that as some miraculous, miracle.
The miraculous miracles are my favorite kind of miracles.
Yeah, I agree. So noticing it as a miracle, he walks over and grabs the host and has no choice but to offer it to her. And as soon as she receives the Eucharist, she gets up and she takes a few steps back and then continues to sit there and kneel and pray. And then, so she's there for a long time praying. And one of the sisters, she's been there for a while. I'm going to go get her because we have to do something else as a community. And she goes over there and taps her on the shoulder and, tries to get her attention, but she just doesn't move. And then she taps her again and she falls dead. Like, she had received the Eucharist and pretty much like immediately died from the ecstasy of receiving this Holy Eucharist.
That did not happen to me at age 11.
No, me either.
It'd be very difficult to be doing this radio show currently if that had happened.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're 11 now, but and you've already received the Eucharist, and you're definitely not 11. So
yeah, for sure. That's a crazy story,
right? I mean, I don't know if I would ever want that to happen to me, because I enjoy receiving the Eucharist, and I enjoy being with God, but I'd kind of like to continue living. God willing, I'd like to live a little bit longer.
There's an 11-year-old sitting in his car as his mom or dad is listening to the show right now, and he's freaking out right now about his first communion. He's like, I don't want that to happen. So happy Halloween, parents. That's your scary story that you get from producer Jake today about his very interesting saint story for sure. So
you're welcome.
Yeah, some of those old saint stories are pretty interesting. So that's a fun place to kind of start the show off today. So that story begs questions, right? And there's a bunch of questions about saints that I kind of want to get around to today, because a lot of people wonder, like, why do Catholics pray to saints? Why do we venerate saints? Why do we ask them to pray for us? That sort of thing. So one of the kind of simple ways that I always think about it is, like, I can ask Jake to pray for me, right? And he might remember, he might not. I mean, I know people have asked me to pray for them, and sometimes I remember and sometimes I don't, because I'm not a saint, right? I forget some of these things, and I'm pretty sure people in heaven are closer to God than you and I are. So a lot of these saints are people who are close to God, and they're united to us still, even though they've died. So there's this interesting thing about how the church looks at death. And it's that all that death is a separation of the body and the spirit. So when we die, it's not an end. It's just a separation. Our body stays here. Our soul, our spirit goes up into heaven. And so we're actually more fully alive at that point. So it's like, people are like, why are you praying to dead people? It's like, well, I mean, technically Jesus died too. So like, why are you praying to a dead person, right? So he came back to life, right? Cool. So there's a little difference there. But at the same time, like, we are all part of the body of Christ. You, me, everybody listening to this show right now, we're all part of the body of Christ, and we're united in that. So like, that doesn't change. You don't leave the body of Christ when you die and go to heaven. You actually become even more fully part of it, right? So we're still united to these people. So just like I could ask Jake or you listening to pray for me today, I can ask those people to pray for me as well. So people might think, okay, like, why do Catholics focus so much on saints? It's like, just like those superheroes, like, we need role models. These are people who have lived life, have had the same struggles as you and me. They've been tempted the same way as you and me. And the interesting thing for me growing up and realizing as I got older, I used to think the saints were perfect. Like, they'd never sinned. They were always sitting there reading their Bibles and praying all day. But saints messed up just like you and me. They sinned. They fell to temptation. They were mean to their brother and sister. Like, they were people just like us, normal people going through their normal day, but they answered this call to live life as Christ called them to. So when they messed up, they asked for forgiveness, and they wanted to always do better. So these people are our role models. They're people that we can look to for an example, and that's why we focus on saints a lot. So those are just kind of two like common questions that people have. If you have any more questions, feel free to give us a call, 855-683-7332. Or you can shoot those over to me on Twitter at Taylor Schroll, SCHROLL, at Taylor Schroll. I'll be answering some questions in the third segment if you have any specific questions about saints. But I want to introduce a new segment today. It's called Mass Text. We don't have our fancy intro for it yet. We will here in the next couple of weeks. But what I want to do is with this Mass Text segment, like, what is a Mass Text, right? It's something that you send out to everybody that you want everybody to read. It's a quick and easy way to get your message out. Well, what I want to do is focus on the text at Mass, right? So the readings at Mass. So what I'm going to do is look at the Mass readings for today and just kind of walk through them and see what they have to say to us today. So if you went to Mass today, which I hope you did, it was a holy day of obligation. If you're hearing that now and it's 7:13, whoops, there's always confession. But the first reading today comes from Revelation. And I love this story. I'll read parts of it. I won't read the whole thing. But it says, I, John, saw another angel coming up from the east, holding the seal of the living God. And he cried out in a loud voice to four angels who were given power to damage the land and the sea. It says, do not damage the land, or the sea, or the trees. I'll let you read on there. But the part I want to get to is that John, the writer of this book, says, after this, I had a vision. So he's in Revelation, he's having a vision of heaven. Like, he's taken up to heaven. He's having this vision. And he sees a vision of a great multitude, which no one could count. So like people as far as the eye could see, from every nation, every race, every people, and every tongue. They stood before the Lord and before the Lamb, that's Jesus, wearing white robes and holding palm branches in their hand. And they cried out in a loud voice, salvation comes from our God, who is seated on the throne, and from the Lamb. So if you picture this whole group of holy ones, right? And another word for holy ones is saints. That's actually what saint means. It's somebody who is a holy one, someone who's set apart. And they're all standing around, and it's really interesting. They say in white robes, right? So we, like you and me, aren't perfect. So we don't have like sinless. I mean, we're not sinless, so we don't have this spotless robe. But when we go to heaven, we are. And then it says, all the angels stood around the throne and around the elders and the four living creatures. They prostrated themselves before the throne, worshiped God, and exclaimed, Amen, blessing and glory, wisdom and thanksgiving, honor, power, and might be to our God forever and ever. So all these people, all these angels are all together praising God. And then it finishes up saying, then one of the elders spoke up and said to me, who are these wearing white robes, and where did they come from? I said to him, my Lord, you are the one who knows. He said to me, these are the ones who have survived the time of great distress. They have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. So these people in the white garments are the saints. There are people who have, they weren't perfect, but they were striving after Christ. They believed in God. They were constantly trying to live for him on earth. And then when they get to heaven, they are completely washed. They have these white robes, and they survive the time of great distress. How many of us are so often feel like we're in a time of great distress? And for me, it's not always like everything's going bad, but lots of things will be going well. One area of my life isn't going well. Oh, maybe my prayer life isn't going well this week. And then I kind of get that under wraps, and then maybe I fall into sin the next week. And then the next week those things are good, but I'm stressing about something else. I think human life is the time of great distress, right? So these saints are the people who persevered through tough times, and now they're getting their ultimate reward. And then I think it's really interesting. The gospel for today was actually the Beatitudes. So if you're familiar with the Beatitudes, it's that list of things. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the land. So it goes on with all of these different things. And I was sitting in Mass today, okay, why would this be read today? Why read this reading on the Feast of All Saints Day? And then it clicked. It was if you want to be a saint, this is your list of to-dos. This is the things that you have to believe. This is the things that you have to rely on. Continuing to believe, blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. We say in the Our Father, forgive us our trespasses, God, as we forgive other people. So essentially what we're saying is we need to be people of mercy, otherwise we won't be shown mercy, right? And as you walk through the Beatitudes, you see all of these different things. Blessed are the peacemakers. We're called to be peacemakers. We're called to be merciful. We're called to be meek and humble. And I love this a lot, because this is if we all want to go to heaven, if we all want to be saints, there are things that we need to accept, and God needs to do some work in us, but there are some things that we need to do. We can't just be passive in this whole thing. So we're going to come back with an interview with my friend Alex Gotay. He's going to talk about this subject exactly. One of his biggest things is that sainthood is a mandate. So we will be right back with my good friend Alex Gotay. We're back for segment 2 of Forte Catholic. So we're going to just get right into this. It's my good friend Alex Gotay. I interviewed him last week when he was in the studio for an event he spoke at Enlisted. He's a great friend of mine. He's a convert to the faith, and he's been in youth ministry for years and years. He's got 17,000 degrees. That might be a little exaggerated, but not much. So without further ado, here is my good friend and youth minister, Mr. Alex Gotay. All right, so I'm here with my good friend, Mr. Alex Gotay. What's up, Alex?
What up? What's good?
What are you doing here, man?
Man, I'm chilling. I'm at A&M. It's good. It's good.
Yeah,
blessed.
We just for some reason I always do a plug for Mad Taco, which is where we ate lunch. We just ate lunch at Mad Taco. Some good stuff.
First time. It's a rightfully plug. It's a good plug.
It really is a good place.
It's like the future plug. I'm a plug. It's the taco. You know what I'm saying? Nobody got that joke unless you listen to hip hop.
No, I didn't. I was very
yeah. So all three of you listening
that understand it. Yeah. So Alex, you're here for an event tonight. We'll talk about that in just a second. But before, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
My pleasure. All right, my name is Alex Gotay. I am a full-time youth minister in Houston. I am happily married, 17 years to my soulmate, who I am blessed. The good Lord definitely uses grace, and that is one of those.
You just know she's listening. You're sucking out.
No. My wife is amazing, man. I wouldn't be the person I am. Real talk, I wouldn't be the person I am if it wasn't for my wife. I can honestly say that. Her family, everything about her. So if you listen to this, pray for your future spouse. Pray for your future spouse. Got 3 amazing boys from 16 to Seth is 8 years old. So I'm blessed, man. I'm blessed. Been in ministry for a long time, both on the Protestant and Catholic side. I've been Catholic about 8 years now. Been in youth ministry on this side about 5 or so years. It's cool, man. It's cool seeing the dichotomy, the difference, and so forth, man. I'm blessed, man.
Good. So, you look a little different than I do. Yeah. So, So if people want to like see who you are, where can they find you on social media, man?
Yeah. Well, if they want to, just type in my name, Alex.Gotay Jr. You can go to my website, thecatholicyouthminister.com. You can see pictures and so forth. I haven't posted some of my talks there in about a year because I've been so busy. This last year has been crazy. But yeah, just any other social media, I try to keep it all the same, Alex.Gotay Jr. Hit me up, Instagram, we'll chop it up, Twitter, whatever it may be, Facebook for, everybody over 30 and so forth. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Even Snapchat.
Good old Facebook.
Yeah.
Man, Snapchat drives me crazy. It really does.
It's fun. I'll be honest with you. Like I'm on there quite a bit. I've been snapping this whole time, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Snapping since day one.
I've been snapping since day one. This is my day ones.
Yeah.
All right. Snapchat is.
So where'd you grow up, man?
I grew up all over, bro. I'm a military brat. So born on a military base. I spent half my summers in New York, half my summers in Houston. I went to my freshman year of high school, I went to 4 different high schools, bro, in like 3 different states. So when people say, where you from? It's hard to answer because I literally grew up all over. But in saying that, my 2 homes were Houston and the other home was New York, Brooklyn, New York, and so forth. So I'm blessed, man,
Yeah, that's where you and I met was in Houston. We were both youth ministers in the diocese. And
yes, the H town.
We were sitting by each other and we looked across the room and be like, hey, look, we should be friends.
Yeah. What's up? You're not from here, or you're not from here, then, so yeah. So usually how it goes.
So you mentioned you were both like in the Protestant world and the Catholic world.
Right.
So how'd that all come about?
I had a deep conversion probably when I was about 21. No, it was when I was 21 because my life story was kind of crazy.
Okay, so is that 21? So you were Protestant, and then it was when you turned 21, you realized that they said you couldn't drink, so you wanted to become Catholic.
No. So check it. No. Back up. So I became Protestant. Well, let me even back up. My faith life, like I had an aunt who would take me to church. My mom would take me every once in a blue moon. I never went to mass or anything like that. It wasn't until I was older. Maybe I did in fact, I had to have when I was younger because my grandmother and so forth. But I didn't go to church growing up or anything like that. Just very seldom we would go. It wasn't until I was 21 because of the way that my life was, I was just out there. But 21, I met a youth minister. He brought me along and so forth. I was there. I got heavily involved in youth ministry, heavily involved in ministry in general, heavily involved in apologetics, which honestly bring me to the church. And so been here ever since. Have a lot of education in this,
Yeah. So what do you mean by apologetics? What does that mean?
Give an account for your faith, for your face. Yes, because your face.
I do have to apologize for my face.
Your
very
face
often.
needs an account. We can edit that part. No, so look. It's 1 Peter 3:15. Always be ready to give an account in your faith for what it is that you believe and love and so forth. So the church that I was going to at that time was heavily involved. In fact, if you know the Protestant world, Lee Strobel, Hank Hintergraff, some of these guys would constantly come there. And they would challenge us to grow about like how the early church was and why is it that we do the things we do and so forth. And so in a nutshell, I ended up reading my way into the church. I met some good Catholic theology. I met 1 or 2 Catholics who just, laid the groundwork to where like, questioned me with, where do we get the Bible from and so forth. And I've always been a why kind of guy. Like, why do we do these things? Why? Which is one of the reasons why I did one of the degrees in philosophy probably. But why? And it led me to the church. I converted. When I converted, I didn't help out in youth ministry. I thought I was done with youth ministry and so forth. I went to a few programs and I was like, you know what? I don't feel like I'm called to this. And long story short, I was working in adult ministry for a while. What ends up happening is one of the priests who helped convert me at his parish, he was like, yo, I know your background. I know how much you've been doing this. We need something different. Why don't you come try everything that you learned? And this is where it is that I'm at, and so forth.
And where is that? Where do you work?
Christ the Good Shepherd, Spring, Texas.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, shout out Father James. That's before. I love him. Love him.
Yeah, we got a Christ the Good Shepherd chapel over here. That's actually where we're going to be tonight. So the reason Alex is here today is we have an event that we're holding here in town, a youth event called Enlisted. So every year we hold this event here in the Bryan College Station area, and we always try to tackle a big topic. You know, one year, like last year, the big topic like in the news was the gay marriage, and then how do Catholics respond to that? How do we kind of live with that, right? So the big thing going on kind of in our nation right now is kind of race relations and how things have been kind of ugly, you know, on from every side, right? So tonight you're talking about stuff like that. So what are you going to say tonight?
What I'm going to talk about is just kind of the perspective that I had growing up is probably it is different. Being Puerto Rican, growing up in the South and spending so much time in North, coming back to the South, saw different things, noticed, I mean, even now there's not a lot of Puerto Ricans here. So you're kind of like an outsider, like looking in. I went to school in Acres Homes. I went to school in Scarborough and Houston and so forth. So I went to predominantly minority schools and so forth. So then stepping into the church, what it is I'm going to be talking about is where it is that we're at in the church, what's going on in society, honestly, I feel is a big part of why we're called to be church. And what does that mean to be church? Because to say that we're Catholic is honestly to say that we're universal, Catholicos. We know this in Greek. And so that means diversity. We should love the diversity and so forth. And just explain some of the things that I've seen, gone through to an extent, and just kind of bring it home to, you know, that reality is we're called to minister, if you will, to the people around us and to embrace diversity, because it very is much beautiful. I love culture in general. I love my Latino culture. I love every culture. I got to speak at this Indian church recently. I thought it was amazing. They were all wearing their sapnis and so forth. You know, that's the kind of stuff that I love, just the beauty of diversity and the beauty of culture itself. So that's what I'm going to speak to.
I just pictured you wearing that Indian garb.
I was wearing one with Jordans on. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. I had Yeezys. Not gonna lie. Got to keep it real. You know what I'm saying?
That's awesome. So we have this all this crap going on with race relations stuff in the news, and it's been going on. I mean, for a long time. It's been heightened like this last year or two. Right. So we have, you know, these young people from 6th to 12th grade coming today. You know, they're influenced by the news, they're influenced by pop culture, influenced by what they're experiencing in the schools. So what are you going to tell them to encourage them?
I'm encourage them. One, don't forget who it is that you are in being made in God's image, but also being made in God's image, it's a responsibility to, like I was saying, to embrace diversity and so forth. But to kind of right these wrongs, if you will, because the reality is America is facing an issue, and it's an issue that I honestly feel has been underlined for years. And part of that problem is what it is that we have going on in our own cultures, if you will. And I mean that word like in the schools, at our own homes and so forth. So to make it easier, I guess Mother Teresa would say, to be the change that you want to see in the world. And I think at the heart of it, that's really what we're about as Catholics. One of my favorites, I'm going to talk about this tonight about Martin Luther King, is that he had Catholic priests standing there. He had ladies standing there. We've always been about this diverse thing. And in those times, it was a lot easier, I would say, to, you know, okay, let's go march, let's go do this. But at the same time, Martin Luther King stood for embracing who it is that you are, but embracing the culture around you and getting everybody to see like, hey, we're here, we're made in God's image. How can we be the body of Christ to everybody else? So that's at the heart of where it is I'm gonna go with the message.
That's great, man. Yeah. So you mentioned how you want to, you know, you're going to encourage them to be the change that you want to see, right? Amen. So, you know, we talked a little earlier over lunch that like you've experienced some persecution, some racism throughout your life. So, how have you tried to be the change in your own life to kind of negate that?
Right. Well, it's funny. We were talking about that, and I told my father. I when all this stuff started going on, I texted my father, and I was like, "Look, thank you. Honestly, you did not raise us at all in a racist household." And so you know, I'm kind of speak to that. Is that like, look, how have I? You know, it's no different because I honestly don't feel it's a race problem. Honestly, to put it into perspective, I really do feel it's a sin problem. I feel like, you know, diversity is what we're about. And because we're different, what we do is we get comfortable with our own selves. And if there's something different, it challenges us. And I've realized that through the years that how it is that we need to do as the body of Christ, what it is that we need to do is just kind of embrace who it is that we are. We are very diverse people, but also like, hey, look, we see these things going on. What are we doing to change it? What are we doing in those conversations, in the locker room, in those conversations with, let's just be real, with some of the people that you know and so forth. How are you affecting that change? Because it's really easy to, on Facebook to hit that like. It's really easy on Instagram, like, yeah, I like that picture and so forth. But the reality is are you doing something about it? That's easy to do that. I'm a very, the way that I look at things, and I say this quite a bit, is I feel like I'm a missionary here, is to like, hey, this is what we're doing. Infuse this. Now let's go. Let's move. Let's do something about this. So that's where all this is coming with this. So that's how I dealt with it was, I thank God that the household that I was raised in was not like that. And my pop's response to me was, he saw racism and experienced racism so much, he didn't want us to go through that. And so for me, growing up in the South, going to different neighborhoods and like just seeing different things, and even coming to the church and so forth, remaining who it is that I am. And is it different? Yeah, of course it's different. But I think that's the beauty of the church itself, is that we are a diverse people, and we are should be embracing these things. So how is it that I dealt with? I'm gonna be honest with you, was I just went back to what it was that I was, what it was that I was brought up in the beauty of diversity. I woke up, literally, I'm gonna tell the story later. I woke up, I listened to, depending on what it was, I woke up in a music household. My dad thought he was a DJ. Yeah, Pops. So I had 2 turntables in the living room. We woke up listening to salsa music, or sometimes it would be Al Green, or sometimes, the Isley Brothers, or sometimes it would be hip hop. And then my moms would play the Beatles. You see what I'm saying? Like,
that's quite diverse.
Yeah, very diverse. And that's kind of how I grew up. And this is one of the reasons why, like me, I am like diverse. I love talking and listening and watching and just doing different things, if you will. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So we were talking earlier too, like we see a lot of this like segregation in the church, like I've been places, you've been places where there's, there's kind of the church where the white people go, the church where the Hispanics go, the church, like the Asian community goes, right?
Right.
And we were, so the people who are driving around the car listening to this right now, who or listen to it on the podcast on iTunes, like what would you tell them? Like how do we fix this problem in the church? How do we fix how we do ministry, how we do community?
Well, I think the biggest thing for fixing any problem, and anybody would tell you this, is first noticing the problem. I don't think that people even talk about it, truth be told. And if they do, it's like, okay, we're good with what's going on now. How can we move to better this? So I would say first recognize, look around, how diverse. And when I say by diverse, I mean like really diverse. And this is one of the ways I like telling parents, when I like telling catechists and so forth, wherever it is that I go to speak, when I'm speaking to adults, I say, think about your average high school. Like go to high school, sit there and lunch. Look at how diverse it is. Like look at how many different people, the different subcultures, how sociologists would say and so forth. Now think of your average parish, like especially youth ministry, because that's what it is that I deal with, our young adult ministry for that matter. Is those same subcultures, is those same cultures and different diversity, are those representative at not just coming there for mass, because that's easy. We go there and then we leave. I'm talking about involved and getting those people involved, getting all the different subcultures involved. I think once we notice that and talk about that problem and talk about that issue, then we can move to a systematic understanding of, okay, so this is what maybe there needs to be some multicultural training. And I mean, not just, and when I say culture, I don't mean ethnicity. That's too easy. I mean, everything. Culture. I like how some theologians and sociologists say, they say that culture is the way that you come to understand the world. And to say that we're Americans, especially to say that we're Catholics, we're very diverse people. I'm blessed, the parish that I'm at, I can literally say there is like, it's such a beauty of diversity, and I love it. I love coming to work there. I love coming to the youth nights. I love going to the talks and so forth. It literally is diverse. And I'm like, man, this is what it's about. And the truth is that it's very easy to fall into that nationality thing. Okay, this is the way we worship. And to an extent, I can understand that. At the same time, again, go back to what it means to be Catholic, is, that universality and so forth. It's easy to say, okay, well, we're all receiving Eucharist, right? And they're receiving Eucharist over there. So we all united in spirit. But what about physical? How physical are we being? How interaction, that's what I mean by physical. What kind of physical interaction are we doing with each other, you know?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I know like myself, and I know a lot of people, every time I talk about this issue, it's a touchy issue, right? It's a hard thing to talk about. And I know a lot of people, myself included at times, like just sit there and like, there's so much going on that I have no idea what to do. I have no idea what to say. And I know like you're going to address that tonight. And like, I know that you have this big right hook. Like, what's the one thing that's going to get us through all of this?
I mean, come on, man. Jesus. I mean, it's like giving the sacraments. I mean, there's a parable where Jesus has to go to the Samaritan woman. And what we don't know about Samaria in that time, if you really look at it and put it into context, is the Jewish people would walk all the way around Samaria. Some people say it's like 70 to 80, 100 miles, something along those lines. They would pass up Samaria. Why? Because they were a different race. So Jesus literally just tells them like, hey, this is where we're called to be. I know that's the answer, is being rooted in Christ, being rooted in the sacraments, being rooted in who it is that we are.
Well, that's awesome, man. I just appreciate you being here. I appreciate you having the courage to attack this big topic. And it's been a pleasure hanging out with you today. I'm looking forward to doing the rest of the day. Thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it. Yeah, Alex is one of my favorite speakers. I listen to his talks on SoundCloud.
Go to SoundCloud. Check it out.
On all, do you say SoundCloud? We can't talk about clowns. That's another issue going on right now.
Gracious.
All right, so go check him out, CatholicYouthMinister.com. He's a great speaker. If you want him for an event, I would highly recommend him. So thanks again for coming. We'll see you guys later.
All right, God bless.
All right, I want to thank Alex for being here and doing that interview. He's a great man. If like you just heard, go check him out on his social media stuff. He's doing some great stuff for the Kingdom of God. So I'm going to try to do some great stuff for the Kingdom of God here in our last segment. Talk about the biggest thing keeping us from sainthood. So stick around for that. I will be right back. All right, welcome back to Forte Catholic. I am Taylor Schroll. We've been talking about saints today, talking about sainthood as we celebrate this All Saints Day. It's been a fun show. I want to thank Alex Gotay again for being interviewed on the show today. We had a lot of fun. I got to hang out with him last Wednesday, this past weekend, and I'll be with him again this coming weekend. He's a great dude. So thanks, Alex. I know you're listening out there somewhere. So just to kind of continue this conversation, as promised, I want to do this last segment on the biggest thing that is keeping you and me from sainthood. And I've been convinced of this recently, because a lot of times we all know the right thing to do. But the definition of sin from the scriptures is knowing the right thing to do and not doing it. So I think the biggest thing that gets between you and I and our call to sainthood is complacency. So Alex, one of his big things that he talks about, his big every time when he's supposed to post it on social media, when he's speaking, he's talking about how sainthood is a mandate. And I love that, because I always hear we're all called to be saints, we're all invited to be saints. But God's a gentleman. He's not going to force us to become saints. He's not going to force us to spend time with him in heaven. It's an invitation, a call, and he's saying, look, if you want to spend eternity with me, there's a way you got to live. There's some things you got to do. And as I was kind of getting ready for the show today, I saw this great quote from Leon Bloy. It says, the only real sadness, the only real failure, and the only great tragedy in life is not to become a saint. To become a saint, to become, essentially, that's just a person in heaven, right? A holy one who spends eternity with God. That's what a saint is. And that's what we were born to be. And complacency, just getting lazy, is the thing that keeps us from that. So when I was looking up the word, the definition for complacency, and I went to the website that I use for all of my homework in high school, a very trusted website called Wikipedia. So I went and looked that up, and it said complacency is a feeling of smug or uncritical satisfaction with oneself or one's achievements. So it's when you're complacent, you're smug. I was like, I don't know what smug means, but let's look at the uncritical satisfaction. It's you're just happy with yourself the way you are, and you're not calling yourself to something greater. You're not calling yourself to improve or striving for that. And so, like, to kind of barrel it down to one word, it's like complacency is meh. It's just, I'm all right. I'm doing okay. I don't need to improve my spiritual life. I don't need to let God love me more in my prayer time. I'm good. I'm good just the way I am. And I think so often we're just okay with being okay. But one of my favorite people in the world, I call him old German Santa Claus, Mr. Saint Benedict, or Pope Benedict. Sorry, not Saint Benedict. Pope Benedict. I love Pope Benedict, our Papa Benny, who's hanging out, our one of two popes now. We're in a very special time in the world. We have two popes. But he said, old German Santa Claus, Pope Benedict the 16th, said, the world promises you comfort, but you were not made for comfort. You were made for greatness. And so I think, especially like in our American society, we're so comfortable. Man, if I want a question answered, I got the answer immediately. I just look at my phone. If I want food, I can stop from this studio here at Red Sea Radio and to my house, it's like 5 miles. I could stop at like 100 restaurants. Okay, maybe 80. I exaggerated. But not by much, right? Like life can be so easy. And that's what leads to our complacency. And there's this, just to kind of start off our conversation on this, there's a great song by my former youth minister, Mr. Mike Marshall. It's with his band, The Poor Kings. It's this song called Confession, and he wrote it when he was sitting in confession one day. And if you were with me, if you've been listening to the whole show, you heard in the first segment, we talked about the Mass readings today and how the Beatitudes were the gospel reading today and how that's our call. Like our call, if we want to be saints, we need to be people who live the Beatitudes. So he wrote this song in the confession line, and it's kind of like a modern day twist on the Beatitudes. He just kind of rewrote them with the things that he was struggling with. And I want you guys to hear that right now.
Blessed are the blind, they won't see these things I've seen. Blessed are the poor, they can't buy these things I need. Blessed are the weak, they won't do these things I've done. Blessed are the children of God, when it's not cool to be one. Blessed are the meek, they don't fight this pride I fight. Blessed are the hungry, they thank God for every bite. Blessed are the broken, growth is more than the damage done. Blessed are the children of God, when it's not cool to be one. Woe to me, I've been complete, and I freely walk away. I've seen deceit, I'm a crook and a cheat, but I'll pretend that I'm the same, but I'm not the same. I'm not the same. Blessed are the sick, they're reminded of their end. Blessed are the lonely, they won't be hurt by so-called friends. Blessed are the workers, they'll grow strong out in the sun. Blessed are the children of God, when it's not cool to be one. Woe to me, my life's filled with ease, and my comforts fuel my faith. I don't know disease, I'm just a crook and a thief, but I'll pretend that I'm a saint, but I'm not
So that was the Poor Kings with Confession. I love that song so much. It came out a couple of years ago, and I pray with it all the time because there's so many things of those lyrics that just stick out to me. And the first one, like, blessed are the meek, for they don't fight this pride I fight. Like, man, that's one of the biggest things I fight against. And like, meek people just don't have to deal with that. And I love that a lot. And there's a couple other one that the two I really want to focus on today is where he says, woe to me. He says it twice. He says, woe to me, I've been complete, and I freely walk away. So you and me, like, we feel like we're complete. So we come to Jesus and we're like, we feel like, okay, like I have my life together. Work's fine. My friends are fine. My relationships are fine. Money's fine. Like, I don't need Jesus. And we walk away from him. Even though deep down we know that we're missing something. We're going to have a story where we look at that from the Gospels here in just a second. And the second one is, woe to me, my life is filled with ease, and my comforts fuel my faith. Like our lives can be so easy in our first world American life. You know, like when things struggle for us, we have a special hashtag for it called hashtag first world probs. Like, these are things that aren't really problems. Like, we're literally making fun of things where we're joking around saying that this is a problem. Oh, first world problems. My iPhone screen got cracked. Like, okay, like I can see how that could be difficult, but that's really not the worst thing that's ever happened, right? Our lives are so filled with ease and our comforts, like our ability to get whatever we want when we want. That fuels our faith. That fuels how we relate with God. If we can get whatever we want food-wise, and we can go to the store and get everything that we want, then we go into prayer and we're like, I want it all now. And then maybe the God's answer is wait. And we're not cool with that answer, and we freely walk away. So the story that I want to really address, because there's one of the things he says, blessed are the poor because they can't buy these things I need, like this greed that we have. And I love that line. It's like, I'll pretend that I'm a saint, but I'm not a saint. And I feel like a lot of us, especially in the church world, we do this. We walk around on Sunday mornings and we got it all together. And then inside, we're like broken inside. And like, we just need to be honest with ourselves. We need to be honest with each other as this body of Christ that we're celebrating today on All Saints Day, that we're all united as one body of Christ with the living, with those who have passed on, like with the saints in heaven. We're all united and we need each other. So I want to look at a story from Matthew chapter 19. If you're driving in your car, don't pull out your Bible and read this. But if you're sitting, listening to the podcast or something, open up your Bible, Matthew 19, verse 16. Matthew 19, starting in verse 16. And it's a story that I bet you've heard before. It's the story of the rich young man. And that's kind of what I want to wrap up the show with today. It says, now someone approached Jesus and said, "Teacher, what good must I do to gain eternal life?" Now, that's a great question that all of us should be asking, right? The rich young man gets a bad rap, but if we look at how he starts off great. What good must I do to gain eternal life? What must I do to be a saint? What must I do to get into heaven? Then Jesus answers him, well, why do you ask me about the good? There is only one who is good. If you wish to enter into life, keep the commandments. So often Jesus is like, if you really love me, keep the commandments. He says something similar here. So there's two things, like no one's perfectly good. And number two, because we're not perfectly good, there are things that we need to do to get the first question answered. What must I do to gain eternal life? And then my favorite part of this whole story, the rich young man looks at him right after Jesus says, if you want eternal life, keep the commandments. The rich young man says, which ones? That's like, that part never stuck out to me until the other day when I was reading this. Like, the dude asked Jesus, hey, which commandments that you've said do you want me to follow? All of them, right? He has the audacity to go up to Jesus and say, which commandments do you want to follow? And we think that's ridiculous. And then, we look at our own lives. And we're like, we're supposed to follow all the commandments, not just the ones that are easy or the ones that we want to. I read this blog the other day. It said, talking about cafeteria Catholics and kind of clickbait type stuff. Like, oh yeah, let's read about those cafeteria Catholics. And the point of it was like, we're all cafeteria Catholics. We all pick and choose the parts of Catholicism that we like. Oh, you're not supposed to gossip. Oh, crap, I gossiped last week, right? Oh, like you should put me first. Oh, I often put work first. I often put my leisure time first before my prayer time with God. Like, in a sense, we're all cafeteria Catholics. We pick and choose things that we want to follow along with. So it's just ridiculous to ask which ones should we follow. And Jesus replied, "You shall not kill, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness." He goes back through the 10 commandments. And the young man said to him, "All these I have observed. What do I still lack?" This is another brilliant question from this rich young man. He's like, "Look, I've followed the commandments. I've been going to synagogue." So for us, it'd be like, "Look, I've been going to church. I've been a practicing Catholic for X number of years, but I still know that I lack something. I'm lacking something in my spiritual life. There's still something deep inside of me that I need, that I want, and I don't know what it is." Jesus said to him, "If you wish to be perfect, go and sell what you have to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me." And when the young man heard this statement, he went away sad, for he had many possessions. And this is the point where, like, if you've been to Mass and you heard this, like, the homily is almost always about money. And I'm convinced that this story is not just about money. That can be part of it. But Jesus is God. He can read hearts. He knows where people sit. He knows, like, look, maybe you don't even have enough money to struggle with, with money being your problem. But there is something, and Jesus knew that there was something standing between this man and his call to sainthood. And for him, it was money. For you, it's something else. I don't know what it is, but you do. And so often we walk away sad because we know deep in our hearts when we ask this question, what do I still lack? God tells us. He reveals to us, like, look, you start to feel that tug on your heart, like, oh, I really need to be committed to my prayer life. I really need to be doing this. And then he finishes up, "Amen, I say to you," right after this man walks away, Jesus says, "Amen, I say to you, it will be hard for one who is rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. Again, I say to you, it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for one who is rich to enter the kingdom of God." And when the disciples heard this, they were greatly astonished and said, "Who then can be saved? I know people who are rich. How can they get into heaven?" And then the most important line of this whole story, Jesus looked at them and said, "For human beings, this is impossible. But with God, all things are possible." So whatever you're struggling with, whatever the thing standing between you and your call to sainthood is, God wants to help you in that. You can't do it alone. We need the body of Christ. We need help from each other. We need help from the saints. We need their intercession. We need to be praying for each other. We need to support each other. But we also need God. Because with just us, these things are impossible. With God, we can all become saints and answer this great call, this great mandate to become saints. So if you want to hear more from, we got to go, but if you want to hear more from me, I just recorded a video on Saints with Ablaze Ministries. Go to YouTube and search Beyond the Pew. It'll be on there. It'll also be on my website, www.fortecatholic.com. There you can find all the social medias to follow me on. I'll post the podcast of this radio show. We'll be back next week. See ya!